Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi and happy Vijay Devas to all the viewers, especially in India. And of course, a little message from my side to the Pakistanis: try again and you'll see. Anyways, I have a little bit of a story that I want to talk about, which is basically Pakistan after 1971. What happened to Pakistan that it has brought itself from the 1971 times to the place it is today? I think, the 1971 war has been discussed quite a bit. Everybody is kind of aware of the story. And on this particular day, I wanted to discuss post what happened to Pakistan in 1971. We know the stories of the POWs, we know the stories of what the 72 Shimla agreements, and we know all that. What exactly took place in Pakistan post this war, and what was the impact of this war, which they see even today? Before I get into that, today there was an interesting statement made by Bilawal Bhutto. Interestingly, he talks about, you know, Osama bin Laden being dead and the butcher of Gujarat still being alive. I want to actually remind Mr. Bilawal Bhutto in the next about half a minute as to what his lineage is and where does he come from. I'm sure he remembers his grandfather, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and his famous dialogue saying "Idhar hum, udhar tum" to the then Bangladeshi Bangla Bandhu, right? This is a very interesting story because he was the foreign minister of Pakistan. Okay, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was the foreign minister of Pakistan during the time when this terrible events took place in Bangladesh. But post that, he said that he had no part in these events, and he attributed this to selfish and myopic military regime led by the former President General Aga Mohammad Yahya Khan. I remember he used to call him uncle. Anyways, I want to actually also tell you, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto kind of tried to move away from this entire thing. Before I tell you how big a part he played in this entire thing, in the entire game in Bangladesh, I also want to tell you in 1974, he publicly apologized for what he called shameful oppression and unspeakable crimes that were committed in Bangladesh. Right? So this is something that we need to put in context. So he kind of tried to distance. But of course, there is something called the Larkana conspiracy. It was a duck shooting trip in a small little town in Pakistan called Larkana, the hometown of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who lost, by the way, the election in 1970. Now, President Yahya Khan, the uncle of Bhutto, so called, and himself, along with certain people from the army, met in this particular town over a duck shooting trip. This was basically a meeting to discuss how not to hand over power to Mujibur Rahman, who had actually won the election in Pakistan. So, I would like to remind Mr. Bilawal Bhutto, please go back and read a little history before you start calling names to other people. Anyways, I also want to talk about a little bit about, I had Kamar Javed Bajwa Saab, who actually made a comment about the 1971 war. He said, this was a political failure, this was not a military failure, and a lot of blame has been given to the military for this entire thing. I'd like to also remind General Kamar Javed Bajwa that who was in power at that time? It was the military who was at the political helm in Pakistan. So before he calls it a political failure, read your history. Who was the martial law? Who was ruling Pakistan at that time? The administrator was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Who was ruling it? General Yahya Khan. So whose defeat is it? Anyways, we'll leave that apart. Pakistanis, they don't kind of think about history that much. And they are, for the lack of a better word, short in this entire game. थोड़ा सा यार ठीक है मान लेते हैं. Let's talk about what happened to Pakistan after 1971. It faced its worst economic crisis after the Bangladesh war. Its poverty indices rose up to about 55% in 1971-72. What happened in 1973, I think all of us will remember, was the oil mini little war that the Middle East started with the rest of the world. So oil price actually shocked Pakistan and increased a huge amount of the import bill for Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan has been no stranger to natural calamity and pest attacks, if I may. 1974-75, they failed in their cotton crop because of these pest attacks, and massive floods, just like what happened right now, took place in 1973, 74, and 76, 77, which impacted the economy really badly, by the way. They've kind of forgotten that. It also experienced the worst inflation in history till now. Okay, till Imran Khan's era. In 72 to 77, when prices actually went up by about 15%. So that was the kind of inflation Pakistan was seeing during that time. I'm just trying to tell you, their foolhardy war cost them quite a bit. And I'm going to go on right up to the present date and show you how their actually foolhardy wars have cost them and have brought them to the place they are. Leave alone the terrorism and all that stuff, and we know the fund for the terrorism does not come from the economy. It comes from drug sales, it comes from all sorts of other nefarious activities that the Pakistani army indulges in. Anyways, let's get back to what I was talking about. The trade deficit in Pakistan, it tripled in 6 years between, like let's say about 1970 to about 1976 sort of a thing. It was about $330 million, and it went up to $1.1 billion in 6 years. Of course, who can forget Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the grandfather of the loudmouth Bilawal Bhutto currently, who said, "We will eat grass and go hungry, but we will have our own nuclear bomb." He's not there around, but wherever he is, I'd like to remind him they were very close to it, and they are even now. Of course, Pakistan has had miracles in its history. There's been a Pakistanis have this messiah complex. Kuch aega aur kuch hum bach jayenge. But this has happened in their history. A lot of people say, yaar, ye to pagal hai. They keep hoping for this thing and all that stuff. But please understand, they've had these incidents in history. What happened in 1979? By the time all this nonsense was happening, 1979, Bhutto was hanged and this and that. 1979, also the Soviets came into Afghanistan. Ziaul Haq's ears stood up. He said, "Yaar, ye to bada acha opportunity hai. Bhaiya, sir, US, let's start whatever you want. We will do all that is required to be done." As far as numbers are concerned, and this episode is more or less going to be numbers, where I'm going to tell you and try and make you understand what Pakistan's back end is all about. The US assistance to Pakistan increased tenfolds from about $60 million in the economic development aid and all that US used to give in 1979 to more than $600 million per year in the mid 80s. And guys, this is not $600 million from today. This is $600 million in those days when Pakistan was getting that kind of money, right? So when the foreign minister Jaishankar says, "You're not fooling us," he knows what he's talking about. From 1980 to about 1990, the US paid about 5.2 or $5.3 billion to the Pakistanis. That included about, I think, $3 billion for economic, and the rest of the money went for military assistance. Okay, so US always wanted the Pakistanis to be a kind of a strong state, and this is something that we must understand. The history of Pakistan is pretty twisted in a way that today a lot of Pakistanis wonder, and I'll try and clarify this for them. They wonder why the Pakistani army is so strong in Pakistan. A simple reason: because you were created as a frontline state. What does a frontline state mean? I'd leave that for your interpretation. Let's move forward. In 1979, I'll just take a year back, Pakistan's GDP was about what, 19-20 billion dollars, and it in just 1 year, when this war started, it doubled. Almost, I mean, not doubled, it went up by about 30, 35, 40%, 35%, to a whopping $31 billion, by the way. From $20 billion to to $30 billion in 1 year. Their per capita income grew by 47%. You know, everybody says now Pakistan had its heydays during this 70s and the 80s. Development was very good. Their growth rates were very good. Pakistan would have overtaken India. You know, all this and that and the other, all sorts of things Pakistan has said about itself. But it tells you where that money was coming from. The money was coming from funds from the US to fight the Soviets. I think this is pretty much known. Now, something that is attributed to Ziaul Haq completely is the birth of Islamization of Pakistan, right? He changed the entire game in terms of the thought processes of people of Pakistan. He's blamed today for ruining the society and the open society of Pakistan, by the way, as they like to call it. I'd like to say that it was Ziaul Haq, of course, but there are certain other factors that caused that Islamization within Pakistan. You know, I'd also let you go back to a point where there, I keep forgetting the name of that report, the 1971 Hormuzd Commission, some H name. I keep forgetting the name because it's a little, difficult to remember. That report had actually mentioned corruption, women, and wine became the ills of the army. And guys, you can find this report online. You don't need to kind of read it too much. Just the first 3-4 pages will tell you exactly what I just said. So there were no Islamists. The Pakistani army was having a ball. So if they started in 1971, you think they stopped it after that? Till date, we know what the story is. Wine, whiskey generals, women. The previous ISI chief had a certain incident, if I'm not mistaken. Corruption, General Bajwa is the latest example. That's something that we need to remember. Thanks, Naveen Hormador Commission. I keep forgetting the name. It's a little bit of a tongue twister for me. Anyways, now I want to find out and I want to actually see what were the factors that added to Ziaul Haq's movement towards Islamization of Pakistan. What happened in 1979 was, of course, Soviet invasion. And another incident that took place next to Pakistan was the Islamic Revolution in Iran. One must understand, Pakistan has been a country that is, from its birth, it's sat down with NATO, CETO, CENTO, I don't know what all what non-NATO ally, CETOs, and all sorts of things they did. The reason they did that is because they wanted to be a bulwark of the West against the US, and that's what they were formed for. So it was Ji Saab, hum karenge. And they were formed, and they started doing this particular thing. Now, every time Pakistan is slumped down, there was a geopolitical event that happened within the region that gave Pakistanis another opportunity to stand up and start moving. As I told you, that GDP went up when the Afghanistan invasion happened. Another factor was the Islamic Revolution of Iran. Now, when Iran had a revolution, we all know Iran is Shia, and Saudi is not. Saudi said, "Yar, oh, if Iran is going Shia, it may have certain effects on Pakistan." So it started aiding Pakistan ki bhai, you set it up, you please don't get into all this stuff. And it basically started the funding of the Deobandi and the Hadayat madrasas. I'll give you a small figure. The number of madrasas in Pakistan basically tripled between 1970s and 1990s. Now, this madrasa thing was actually there in Pakistan for a long time. But because of the Soviets pumping in so much money with regards to kind of protecting its interests within Pakistan and didn't want Pakistan to fall into that, Shia influence or Iranian influence, they pushed in this Wahhabi concept within Pakistan. Madrasas exploded, and you know what happened to their upper stories. But that war ended. Wars, like any other war, is never ending. I mean, of course, if you're not fighting for the US will go on for 20 years, but they still end at some time. So war ended. Soviets went back, the Russian broke down. 1990s was pretty much a very bad time for Pakistan. Of course, what was US doing at that time? Pakistan was wondering, yeah, now how do we kind of leverage ourselves in this entire place, as they've been doing all the time. First, it was, as I said, it was the India thing, because India was with Soviet and this and that. They needed to counterbalance. Then, of course, was this war in Afghanistan and the Iranian Revolution. The third thing that came out during the 1990s is the Americans went into Iraq. This whole Gulf crisis that took place, the Iran Iraq war, and this and that, and this and that. During that time, there was a lot of tension within the region, and Ziaul Haq was able to churn out about 9% of military spending every year. I mean, in India, we keep fighting about 2.345, yeah, I don't know what all, 1.1687% increase in defense. They had 9%, right? So you can imagine the external debt of Pakistan by about 94, 95, I may be mistaken, was about $50 billion, which was 73% of their GDP. So Pakistan has been kind of teetering on the banks of the edge for a long, long time now. It's nothing new for the Pakistanis. So 90s was not a very good time. The Americans were diverted. Pakistan had its own issues. Of course, the Soviets went off and the Taliban regime part one came in. It was that Islamic movement where only these Islamic countries kind of recognized the Taliban. And, this whole thing was going around at that time. Of course, at that time, India decided to explode nuclear weapons. Now, eating grass, remember? Ziaul Haq's dream. Pakistan also lit up a matchstick and, switched on its nuclear weapons. And boom, that's when what happened at that time? Economic sanctions. Lot of people just, went away from Pakistan. It was interesting times because Pakistan realized, yeah, Hindustan say we've taken a panga. We've exploded this bomb sham and all that stuff, but yeah, there's nothing happening in the geopolitical environment where we can milk something out. One of the thing is happened after that. Guys, this is 1998 we are talking about. What happened in 1999? Kargil, Parvez Musharraf, return of the military, that, what, white hair over here, full jet black at the back. I mean, neatly parting little man who came in, of course, like Zia. He also said, yeah, if nothing happens in this neighborhood, boss, hum to gaye. We are finished. See, this is a realization we must have. They need a geopolitical event within the region for them to hook on and latch on to that entire thing. And I'll tell you, in today's day and age also, they're trying to do that. उस स्केल पे नहीं, but थोड़े से स्केल पे किया था. I will tell you about it. Sure enough, 9/11 and the global war on terror. Musharraf Saab became the stand-up guy of President Bush. I'm so sure some of you would remember, this kind of stuff. When President Bush actually, stood next to Musharraf and, I find him to be a very stand-up guy. He's our partner and ally and, this and that and the other. He's the first front line in fighting terrorism in Afghanistan. All that stuff was said. Pakistanis also, like loyal soldiers, started doing whatever they were supposed to do. Of course, they were playing their own game at the back end. That's something that we all know about, and I'm not going to get into all that stuff. But that's what was happening in Pakistan at that time. Now, 9/11 was a turning point in Pakistan's history, right? US aid program till 2010, right? The bulk of the aid. US provided $62 billion to Pakistan. Now, I'd like that sink in for a minute, and I'm going to repeat that. 9/11 to 2010, $62 billion. A lot of money. Of course, at that time, Pakistan was also going through a lot of turmoil. Benazir, assassination took place. Musharraf was going through a whole lot of protests, and a whole hutch-patch was happening at that time. Of course, but in 2009, US Congress again renewed the contract, and they created another fund of, they said, security and development plan for Pakistan, and they created another fund of about $7.5 billion starting the year of 2010 to 2014. right? So let's take it from 2000 to 2014. This is stuff which is there in the public domain. I don't even know what tertiary funds these monkeys would have got. Their fund starts at 62 billion plus 7.5 billion, right? That's almost 70 billion right there. 70 billion dollars, right? Apart from this, now USA यार ऐसा तो नहीं है, USA does not give on its own. IMF पाकिस्तान को पैसा दो. IMF gave almost 5.5 or 6 billion dollars between 2008 to 2010. You know, उस time पे 2008 crisis, that what economic crisis, US led Lehman Brothers crisis had happened. Of course, Pakistan said, sir, पैसे नहीं है sir, बचाओ हमको. So they said, हाँ ठीक है, okay, और दे दो इसको. So that makes it how much? 62 plus 63 or odd plus 7.5 plus another 5.5. My maths is a little weak. I'd leave it right there. Right? Of course, you know, one bad thing happened for the Pakistanis is that Trump came along. Trump said, yeah, you know, this and that, and wo sab hua. But before that, what happened to Pakistan is it went into the grey list in 2008. After that, you know, Obama's time, before I come into Trump, what did we find in Pakistan? We found Osama bin Laden sitting quietly 3 kilometers away from the Pakistani military academy at Abbottabad. Of course, Pakistanis, everybody knew Pakistanis were playing a game. All this was happening. But look at the twist in the story. Just they were given that IMF bailout, so much money, and Osama came in there. Osama तो बैठा हुआ था बहुत टाइम से, but they found the Osama bin Laden right there. Financial Action Task Force, tuck inside. After that, but Pakistani said, yaar, ab kya karenge, ab kya karenge. Anyways, they were getting still, you know, a lot of money was there. They were getting a lot of money from, um, you know, the war of terror, the global war of terror. They were siphoning out of a lot of funds. We know that. Of course, when the US goes inside, there is not everything is on paper. We know that. With the war in Ukraine, I think we all have learned the amount of underhanded stuff that happens with US's involvement in any place is absolutely amazing. Right? Now, Pakistanis, of course, were wringing their hands and said, yaar, ab kya karenge? Suddenly, who came into power in China? Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping decided to make one of his biggest strategic blunders and launched the project of BRI. Yeah. 2013, Pakistan was number one standing there saying, Sab, bolo sab, humko do. Now, this was a very dangerous move for Pakistan at that time. I must say, very gutsy move for Pakistan. They went, sat in China's lap in spite of the fact that USA पैसे ले रहे थे. They tried to kind of gauge their strategic balance in that entire time because they were indispensable for the US. Let's face that. पैसे वहां से आ नहीं रहे थे. FATF में आप बैठे हुए थे. So they said, yeah, let's teach a lesson. Let's go sit in bloody China's lap. So they went and sat down there. Now, I was talking about Trump. I think I mentioned Trump a little too early in the game. But Trump came in 2018 and he said, yaar, ye theek nahi hai. Ye to Pakistanis are playing a double game. Trump said, we need to stop this nonsense in Afghanistan. Called up Pakistanis and said, boss, baat karao Taliban se. Pakistani double cross there also. Americans picked up the entire Taliban set up the discussions and all that, put it in Qatar. So Pakistanis lost that also. So thoda bahut, arms and ammunition, this and that, all that was happening. These little militias that Pakistan was running in Afghanistan. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. There's a lot of details. You need to understand from, I would say, 2008 when they were put into the grey list to about 2018, 19 sort of a thing, they lost about 38-40 billion dollars because of that FATF grey listing. So Pakistan knows, it's not something now. FATF in our memory is like bada recent hai, har saal ye wo and all that. They've been there for a long time. So they've lost a lot of money, right? It was pretty much half of what the US gave them, they lost. Pakistan defense budget. Now, this is something very interesting that I wanted to tell you guys. Abhi to we know, yeah, they don't have money and all that stuff. But Pakistan's defense budget in 2021-2022 was about $8.78 billion. It was a 6.253 6.3, 6.2, 6.5%. I mean, increase from the previous year. You can imagine, let me tell you this, Pakistan's defense budget is about 16% of the total government expenditure of FY 21-22. You can imagine for year 21 and 22. This is the kind of nonsense that the Pakistanis are sitting on. Which brings us to the present day. Of course, they've been hand to mouth since Trump came into power, and then Biden came in, and phone call ka wait hota raha, and then IMF se ek aaya, idhar aaya, udhar aaya. They've been running around. Kabhi Saudi bhagte hain, kabhi ye bhagte hain, wo bhagte hain. I think all of us are aware of this history. I wanted to bring you to the point of time of Imran Khan to tell you that, you know, it's a long story which has brought to Pakistan here, which kind of brings me to the last segment of my talk today. It's the comedy of errors that is Pakistan. You know, there are loads of errors here. I mean, you look at their formation itself, it's an error. Let's face it. Even they say it. So, but whatever. Let's not go that far. My timeline is 71, so let's stick on it. Excuse me. My apologies. So my timeline is 1971. Let's kind of stick to that. What happened after 1971? Bhutto played around, got Yahya Khan truck. Yahya Khan took the entire blame of the war on himself. And, you know, by the way, that was the only point of time after probably Imran Khan's 10-12 days when the army was under a lot of pressure. Bhutto kept the army tabak ekdam. But then, you know, Bhutto was a little mad. He started fighting with all the governors and this and that and all that nonsense. Thoda sa, I don't know who is not in that country, but anyways, let's stick to the story. He was a little crazy. He started fighting with all the provinces, and of course, Balochis decided, yaar, ye bahut ho gaya. As in Pakistan, everybody picks up a gun. Unhone bandook utha li bhai. Insurgency started. Bhutto said, bhai, ye to I can't handle. Army chief sahab, jara inko handle karo. 1974, Bhutto called the army back, and we know what happened to him after that. So that's a comedy of error, by the way. Bhutto put out the army, and then he brought it back, and then you know what the army did to him. Pakistan itself, and this is something I think all of you would be knowing, identity crisis. Who are they? यार उनको हिंदुस्तानी बोलो तो I'm not an Indian. You tell them, where are you from? I'm Afghan, I'm Turk, I'm this, I'm that. I believe one very, very simple thing. If tomorrow India starts giving money to them, they'll agree that you're Indians. It's a matter of the money. Wherever the money comes from, they say, yaar, bhaiya, hum to aapke hi hain. Right? So that's something that we must understand. There's a huge amount of identity crisis. They cannot connect to the land. Right? It's Pakistan. Pakistan is a state of mind that they say. We don't say India is a state of mind. India is my motherland. It's the mud, the dust, the trees, everything is mine. It's my motherland. They say Pakistan is a state of mind. Look at Bajwa. Bajwa Sahab was, you know, a lot of people, and I must say a lot of Indian analysts, some very, very big people, Indian analysts say, you know, Bajwa was very smart in this and that. Bajwa was very this thing. Hey, by what smart? You brought Imran Khan and then kicked him out. You kicked out Nawaz Sharif, brought Imran Khan and then kicked him out. The same Imran Khan gave you an extension, by the way. So this is the kind of overlapping of stuff, comedy of errors that happens in Pakistan. Right? So that's something that, again, just to mention. A biggest narrative in Pakistan, America को हरा दिया हमने अफगानिस्तान में. America को अफगानिस्तान में हरा दिया. And that's something that they say, we beat America in Afghanistan. And उससे पहले रूस को भी हराया था. Soviet Union, you know, we were like, we made the Mujahideen and this and that. Okay, so you are the creators of Taliban. They agree to that. Now what's happening? The bird has come back home and knocking on the door of Pakistan and asking for some more land. You know what's happening in Pakistani borders every day? Who's shooting at whom? Let's not get into that. And this is the same Afghanistan, by the way. When Pakistanis called for IOC meetings, they ran around the world and said, please help. Imran Khan said, shackles of slavery have been broken. what the I don't have a cup, but that guy, the ISI chief Faiz Hamid, went and said, "Oh, everything will be all right. I'm here." All that. UN may speech sheets, there was appeals all the time, and this and that and the other, and you find that it's the same Taliban beating the what out of the Pakistanis. Snakes are biting. That's all I would say. Hillary Clinton had said, if you would, keep snakes in your backyard, they will come and bite you. She said they will come and bite you. I am saying they are biting you. This is the snakes also of the Saudi money they took. Remember that they won the entire game that they started on the pretext of Saudi Arabia kind of keeping its presence in that entire region and keeping a little dominance of the Sunni game in the Islamic world. It's also biting them. Of course, I don't need to discuss, we won all wars. I discussed that. General Qamar Javed Bajwa also said Pakistan did not win, did not lose. Army did not lose. It was the military who lost. It was it was the politicians who lost. Bhai Sahab, you were the politicians during 1971 because it was a military rule. Read for God's sake one time. Another interesting comedy of error in Pakistan is loan for interest and interest for the loan. Now, hear me out very, very clearly. A loan, they take a loan to pay their interest, but they've got a lot of interest in taking loans. That's something I wanted to tell you guys because that's what is happening around. I mean, I'm making it sound funny, but at least I find it funny. But this is the comedy of errors that we have sitting in front of us called Pakistan. Recently, of course, the finance minister goes to Russia and says, Bhaiya, hum to Russian oil and we want it in the same prices as you're giving India. India में सब देखना शुरू हो गया यार ये क्या हो गया Russia, why is Russia doing stuff like this? Oh, we are getting it. Agreement is already signed. A pipeline will come. This will happen, that will happen, and this and that. Now we have the same Bilawal Bhutto who tried making comments about our country, saying, backtracking from this entire thing, sitting in the US, he's saying, we are not even talking to Russia about any oil. He said this today, by the way. So that's, there are so many of these comedic errors that you can talk about as far as Pakistan is concerned because there are just so many. I'll tell you another one. Some time ago, Pakistanis got some money for F-16s, right? I'm sure all of us would have heard that. Now, F-16 story, and I've done a video on this, but I think a lot of you wouldn't have seen it. So I'm going to kind of repeat that little story. It's going to take a minute. After that, I'll get into your questions. So guys, please, before I tell you this interesting story about how Pakistani managed to get those F-16s and that $450 million, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, hit the bell icon so that you get the notifications as soon as I put videos, because I'm putting these little shorts nowadays and they're fun. Today I calculated, I think one of my videos long time back, I'd spoken about the amount of tea that the Pakistanis have had when they were in India, just to kind of poke a little bit. But anyways, jokes apart, the $450 million. Now what happened? USA, very focused towards the war in Ukraine, realized, yeah, Ukraine is firing a artillery shell which is about 122 millimeter. It's from this old Soviet gun, Govdiska S1V, something. They realized, yeah, there are only 3-4 countries that make this shell. One is India. Of course, India is not going to supply arms to Ukraine. Second was Ukraine itself. That factory was destroyed. The third was the Russians. Now, US can't call the Russians and say, yeah, bhai, wo Ukraine ko thoda dena hai, to wo to ho nahi sakta. And the fourth country was Pakistan. So US called up Pakistan and General Bajwa and said, bhai sahab, zara shell banao. Bajwa sahab, yes sir, banayega. Kitne ka chahiye? US said $500 million. Here is the money. Get the shells made. The Pakistani, there are 2-3 companies in Pakistan that actually went across, started, they went to Romania, Bulgaria, all these countries around, Poland, everywhere. They set up their supply chain and started sending these shells to Ukraine. $500 million came into Pakistani accounts. Pakistan said, aha. There was a little byline in that agreement that I kind of figure out right now. US said, I'll give you $500 million, but give me 450 so that I'll give you some spares for your F-16. Who won? Remember one thing, US. That's what they did. They got the $500 million by selling arms, and they spent $450 million buying spares. So, you know how it works. This is what the game that they've been playing with, and this is the U-turns or the biggest comedy of errors in Pakistan. Today, I know a lot of us are a little pissed off about Bilawal Bhutto, and I've kind of ripped his narrative open right at the beginning by telling him his family lineage and his connection with the great, terrible, terrible events or the great massacre that took place in Bangladesh. He needs to read a little history, so as every Pakistani. I don't think they do. So, that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to actually keep this a little away from this political events and actually take you through numbers as far as Pakistan is concerned to give you a little better understanding of what Pakistan is. Why are they in this position? Is this just Imran Khan's fault or Nawaz Sharif's fault or Musharraf's fault? This is the fault of all the little people and many more that are there on the thumbnail of this video. Although I can't fit everybody, each one of them has his own story. I'll tell you about Benazir Bhutto. She was the one, by the way, who finalized the deal of the proliferation of nuclear weapons to North Korea. How many of you would know that? And rumor has it that she was on a visit to Beijing. Her aircraft came back to Islamabad, picked up what she had to. What it had to was brought back to Beijing, and she herself went to North Korea with the weapons. That's Pakistan for you. Each one of these guys, right from the history and the opening of Pakistan, has created a certain comedic error in their game. Imran Khan, the best one, of course, last one I'm going to mention. Of course, this stuff will keep coming out. And guys, please hit out and show me what all more comedy of errors that you guys can find in the comments. So let's discuss each one of them. Imran Khan went and stood next to Putin one day before the invasion, and he actually said, what a joyous time it is to be here. He paid for it. But anyways, he did do that. Let's start with your comments. Naveen Saab, thank you so much for your contribution. And as somebody else has also said in this thing, you're very kind and you've been encouraging me, and I'm grateful. The recent verbal attacks from the Pakistanis at the UN, who would you attribute this to? Number one, Chinese pressure. Two, Mullah General Munir, or Munir himself being a Chinese install. Sir, number one, Chinese pressure, I don't think so. They're least bothered about attacking Modi directly. Mullah General Munir and Munir himself being a Chinese install, we'll have to kind of see. I personally feel, I have a third theory, and I kind of shared it on the WhatsApp group as well. My theory says that this is basically these guys pitching themselves for elections in Pakistan. Remember one thing, that talk is very hidden talk that abhi election ka kuch ho sakta hai. Imran Khan is threatening to kind of dissolve the the assemblies and stuff like that. And if there is chaos, of course, elections will be called. If that happens, Bilawal Bhutto is trying to push forward. What sells in Pakistan, guys? What sells in Pakistan is a hardcore, solid anti-India narrative. Remember that. So if you're able to actually shoot at the head, at the Prime Minister of India, oh, you're a big guy. Come on, Kashmir to chota hai yaar, tumne to Modi ko uda diya. That's their thought process. Of course, there is, I won't say that's all there is to this recent announcement. I also feel there is a certain thought process which is there in Pakistan, which is realizing, yaar, Imran Khan, if he keeps saying, yaar, India, 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 India mein ye ho raha hai, India mein wo ho raha hai, people start looking at India and saying, hamare paas, we need to be like India. We need to do this. We need to do that. Aspirations, it's human. If that happens, the army loses its relevance completely. Chief calls up Bhutto, by anti-India statement, de. Click. These guys don't think, right? That's all I'm trying to say. But I personally kind of feel that this is Bhutto trying to shine his own image of being a strong statesman who's able to actually make, maro strong comments and stuff like that. He's trying to pair himself with our, Mr. Jaishankar, I don't think he comes anywhere close. But anyways, that's a different discussion for a different day. Let's get on to the second one. 16 December 1971. Many congratulations to fellow Indians on India's spectacular victory over Bekaristan. 93,000 Pakistani soldiers surrendered. It's a world record. Absolutely, sir. Naveen Avasti, sir, thank you so much for supporting this channel. You're very generous. I'm a student now. Will start earning and take you as an inspiration and support. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. And Naveen, as I always say, very kind of you. Thank you so much. Uh, let's move forward. Right, sir. USA has to change its mindset of Cold War. Pakistan and USA leadership is questionable. I agree with you. But see, USA is one country that will keep its interests forefront in whatever it does, and it cares less what impact it has on any other country as long as its interests are met. And that's something you must understand about US. We always kind of get pissed off when the US acts in that particular way and says, "Oh, what is our friendship then if you're doing stuff like this and this and that?" Please understand, the US will keep its interest forefront at all times. They will never ever keep their interest down and support you in any way. Let me put that across very clearly. So if they are giving some stuff to Pakistan, there is obviously a hidden motive behind it, which was Ukraine. But why would they give the F-16 spares? We'll find out. There is, of course, the way, and there is a thought process that says that US does this to kind of finger at India, to kind of keep India at its place. I kind of think, yeah, that has a possibility as well. More nationals for the sake of our nation. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, and thank you so much for your comments. Excellent analysis and historical psychological context for this killing state built on the blood of Hindus. Ma'am, I'm actually just I wanted to give a little bit of a spin to this entire story with regards to how Pakistan has been coming through its history. We've always talked about military ne ye kar diya, Bhutto ne ye kar diya, wo and all that stuff. I wanted to say what impact it had on Pakistani economy, because at the end of it, yeah, it's all about the economy. Today, if India is standing up on its own two feet and kind of doing what it needs to do, it's because, of course, India as a country is also becoming very strong as far as the economy is concerned. I said this yesterday night in my show, and I'm going to say it again to all of you guys, and please pass this across. Stop buying Chinese products. We as a community in Dev Talks, we need to stop buying Chinese products. Absolutely no. There is no question. The problem with India's imports with China today is not as much as raw materials, but consumer goods. We need to stop it so that we do not support that regime who's doing whatever it is doing with us. And I've past 3 days I've spent discussing what China is doing. So I won't kind of get into that in terms of the details. Let's stick with our friend Pakistan for a moment. So why is the opposition bringing national security to political matters? Demeaning bravery of our armed forces is unacceptable. Followers of that party still believe surgical strikes, airstrikes. This is a democracy. I don't condone what they're saying, but this is a democracy. You need to, give it. And let me tell you, uh, negative comments about the armed forces happen even in Western countries. People are not. You just please go back to the anti-war movements and what all they've said about the U.S. Army and stuff like that. There are people who have done a whole lot of damage to the U.S. Army by keeping an anti-armed forces narrative within their countries as well. You will find all kinds of people around the place. We as Indians need to focus, on what is right and actually do the right thing. And that's all I would say. People like this will come and go. It's the straightness and the strength of India that needs to carry it on. Pakistan was given the most fertile lands of Indus civilization. Indus River Basin and Ganga River Basin is the other side, sir. We never cover that. Absolutely. I'll tell you something more about Pakistan since you actually talk about it. Pakistan actually had the world's largest canal systems. They were actually a net food exporter at one time. They were able to produce, they were a predominantly agrarian economy. They still are. They were able to actually do a lot of good to their agriculture in the first 30 years of their their existence. So it's not that Pakistan was a completely a basket case right from the beginning, but yeah, anything good which is brought on with all this nonsense would become that. Bro, the info you give, hats off. Thank you so much. I know I'm not from any of there. Right? Okay, sir, I think Bhutto said घास खाएंगे लेकिन atom bomb बनाएंगे. Yeah, he said we will eat grass or sleep with sleep empty stomach, but we will have our own nuclear bomb. What are your views on NSA Ajit Doval and national security policy? Well, they're doing what they're doing, sir, but I want to see the national security policy, and that's something that we are missing in this country. They're doing a lot of good. I'm very happy with the way terrorism has been dealt with the way Khalistan is being dealt with, and I'll actually cover that. I'm doing research on it right now as I've spoken to some of you guys on my WhatsApp group. But you need to understand there is a lot still that is need to be done. As we discussed last night with General Shankar, there's a lot which needs to be done. There's a lot happening. It just needs to be done a little faster so that we all can kind of reach to the, to as closest to possible our goal of becoming the power that we want to be. Pakistan was okay. I think I've covered that. Thank you so much. Yeah. There's a theory regarding Laden. The Pakistani army facilitated Laden. When it's time to sell him off, some generals tip the USA to take down bin Laden. You know, I'll tell you one thing about the US, right? No matter how much it has supported Pakistan and done all that stuff, it never trusted Pakistan. Okay. So that's something that we need to put across very carefully. There is a reason that there was a CIA presence within Pakistan looking for Osama bin Laden, because they knew at a certain level what was happening and what Pakistanis were doing. There were talks about the Pakistani double game as far as 2005, 2006. This is something you need to kind of put into context. The US is not a fool. Okay, they wanted to use, they didn't have any other way to go into Afghanistan. Think about it. Where would they have gone from? Iran? India wouldn't have allowed it. Central Asia is pretty much Russia's backyard. You won't want to go there. Where else do you go in from? Pakistan. So they tolerated a lot of nonsense from Pakistan. Today, it's a little more difficult for Pakistan to get through that entire game, which would have been a finger snap during that time. As far as Osama bin Laden is concerned, I personally kind of feel that the Pakistanis did not know anything about it. No, definitively, I don't think me or anyone else, except for the guys who are in US intelligence, will be able to give us an answer. But this is what my feeling is, right or wrong, and that's up to you to kind of think about it. Guys, from this story, doesn't Pakistan sound like a Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the sorry, it just made me laugh, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's Pakistan, but has many forms. That's something that we need to understand. Pakistan has been uh, basically the same, but their outward positioning has changed over time, and their messaging has changed over time. So they used to be very effective at a certain point of time. Today they're just trying to garner that effectiveness and not able to kind of put their message across. The latest spin is, oh, India is behind, this some bomb attack that took place, Hafiz Saeed's residence, and this and that. Funnily speaking, there's this, I think some YouTuber, I think somebody shared it on our group also, who's done this video about it. And funnily speaking, those guys have put some graphics from that video itself into their report. And so it's all bundled up. That's one thing I think we need to do in India, is stop being so, this thing about covert operations. Let them be, because unknowingly, I'm not saying that guy did it on purpose, unknowingly sometimes you kind of release something that you should not. So that's something we need to be very careful when we discuss all this kind of गट्सी तो है बंदे। चाइना अमेरिका की सुलह करा रहे थे कुछ टाइम पहले। सर वो भी एक बड़ी लंबी स्टोरी है, उसमें भी वो सुलह क्यों हुई थी, देयर इज आल्सो अ रीजन, बिकॉज ये कराई नहीं थी इन्होंने, ठीक है, ये तो बोलने की बात है। एट द एंड ऑफ इट अमेरिकन्स वांटेड टू डू इट देमसेल्व्स इन द लार्जर जियोपॉलिटिकल गेम। दे वांटेड टू काइंड ऑफ गेट चाइना ऑन देयर साइड सो दैट दे कुड counter the Soviet Union within this area. It was Henry Kissinger, yes, who was there in Pakistan, who sat in a Pakistani Air Force aircraft pretended that he had stomach ache and he was taking leave for a day, flew into China, sat there, sat with Mao, did the meeting, and fixed up the big meeting with Nixon and Mao at that time. So yeah, Pakistanis did play a part, but if somebody's going to say that they were the reason why this happened, I kind of don't think so. This is the smoke attack on our forces that has shifted from China to these jokers. It is almost like they co-conspired with Chinese to create a great diversion in the international media. I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised at all, Dhiran. There has been a collusive threat. A lot of people, and I'm going to cover this in a couple of interviews. One interview I'm doing with a gentleman who's written a beautiful book about 1967, the war with China. I'll call it a war, and I'll tell you why in that particular interview. And I'm also covering another talk with someone else who's going to talk about this collusive threat between Pakistan and China. Is it going to be a collusive threat? Is it going to be a co-threat? Is it going to be a combined threat? That's something that we need to understand. So we'll discuss this and we'll see where that discussion goes. F-16 upgrades, I think I've covered that. If you need any more details, please let me know, sir. My email address is that there in the description. You can connect with me. I'll be happy to share more details with you. Uh, all right, let's move forward. Yeah, they literally congratulate each other on getting a loan. I said a loan for an interest and interest for a loan. Okay. Right. Now, for the next 3 years, Pakistan needs to get around $80 billion. Yeah, I'll be surprised if they get eight, but yeah, you're right, sir. There's no question about it. Pakistanis also have certain other requirements which is going to come their way because, as and when this flood goes by, this year they will still have some food. Uh, if there is no crops that actually come across, what's going to happen in the next year is something that they need to understand. They need to, uh, you know, understand that very, very carefully. Then ISI Chief Lieutenant General Abdul Pasha, man behind 2611, got 25 million US dollars for Osama's location and then went to the US into elections and Obama won. What? I absolutely might be. I don't know. They're always remember USA has its sources. I won't be surprised. But of course, I don't think Pakistani establishment as per se was involved in the capture of Osama bin Laden. Nothing can beat Putin inviting Imran on the day of opening his war front. Peak comedy. You know what? I'll tell you another thing. This Shahbaz Sharif is no good. Who's the first prime minister who went and met Xi Jinping after his inauguration? Shahbaz Sharif. So yeah, they're gonna be used. There's no question about it, and they need to understand this. It's. What do I say more, man? I mean, this is the new India where everyone might have a different political ideology, but if any external entity disrespect any our dignitaries, we will hunt you down. I don't think we need to hunt them down. I think we just need to let Pakistan be. They're gonna destroy themselves, by let me just break this down for you guys. We got a little pissed off. So did I about this particular comment. I don't care who he's saying it about, but you can't talk like that about the prime minister of my country. Um, fair enough, but remember one thing: when these guys are going to talk like that in a public forum and international forums, a lot of the politicians might kind of, oh, very good, yeah, and all that stuff. But remember one thing: when you're doing business with the country and you're talking stuff like this, a lot of business people are going to say no. Remember that it's a big game that they play against themselves whenever they overspeak, and that's something that we must in India must remember at all times. What are the major fault lines in Pakistan? Akash Saab, I have done 3 videos on this particular thing. You can have a look, but majorly speaking, of course, politics, economy, and of course, the biggest of them all is going to be religion. Now, these are the heads. You can break them down in religion, and the societal religion and stuff like that. You can talk about the Balochis, the Sindhis, the Pashtuns, a whole lot of things that are coming across. Remember this game about Pakistan, and I'm going to speak to somebody's going to explain us Pashtuns a lot much better than what I can in the next week or 10 days. So stay tuned for that. But till that time, I have got some videos. You can go to my channel, type fault lines of Pakistan, be able to get a lot of stuff. Guys, you can, so by the way, if you guys want to find specific videos and stuff like that, you can go onto the website also and go on the search bar and type. It's pretty friendly, so you'll be able to find a lot of things. And I've put them in, their in archives and stuff like that, so you can check them out there as well. Right. The biggest blunder of Kargil war, which kind of helped India open up to the world as a responsible nuclear power and a developing economy. Yeah, well, Kargil was, I think, an epitome of all the blunders, and a lot of, yeah, Pakistan did lose a lot of respect. After that, please understand, but Pakistan has always been accepted to be a crazy country. In the West, it's always, haan, theek hai, yaar, it's Pakistan, let it be. We look at Kargil and all these things as a very, very strong event for us, but the world doesn't. And that's something which is a failure of our own communication. Today, 26/11, because we've been harping on it for so many years, has become a big thing. We've been harping about these terrorism activities for the past 6, 8, 10 years. So this has become a big thing. But we didn't do these other things before. And at that time, please understand, we were not also in the most friendly terms with the West because we just done our nuclear explosions and stuff like that. Chirag says, I left buying Chinese products after 2020. Guys, all of us need to do that. There's no question. Thank you so much for doing that. My friends always mock me for buying Samsung phones because Chinese phones are strong indirect threat. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to look at this, and I'm waiting for the iPhone that gets manufactured in India. I've got an old tatty one I want to kind of replace. It doesn't even work anymore fully, but I'm waiting for that phone to kind of come into the country. Uh, right. What is more important for us, external security or internal security? Because I see no internal security policy. Well, these, I said that we don't have a national security policy which has been published in the public domain. I'm not sure whether there's a confidential one. Of course, even if there is one, well, we won't even come to know about it. But having said that, internal security wise, I think there is a lot of things that have happened within this country. There's been a lot of stability in terms of attacks and this and that and the other. These protests and this, please, there are loads of reasons that happen behind it, but generally speaking, terrorism has dropped within this country a lot. I was in Mumbai during the years when the train blast happened. I was in Mumbai the year when the 26/11 happened, and a lot many more incidents happened between 2004 and 2009, the time that I was in Mumbai. So I remember those things. It was a terrible, terrible time, and we don't hear stuff like that. So there's a lot. Understand one thing, when I think somebody said this in one of his interviews, I forget who, but the line kind of stuck with me that we always remember the one that happened. We don't remember the hundreds that didn't. If anybody could remind me, I don't know, this thing, could you bring any intel officer? Yes, I have already done, who's discussed military intelligence, Major General Amitabh Joshi. I'm also working on another episode with him. You could check out that one in the time being. Um, Napoleon's actually said about British that they are a bunch of shopkeepers. Okay. So why is the world missing the opportunity to disarm Pakistan from nuclear? This thing, there's no doubt that the natural force of Pakistani karma will lead to its destruction. Before that, we need to disarm them. See, yeah, okay. Let me also tell you one thing, that the CIA has a secret plan of grabbing Pakistani nukes if anything happens. Uh, you can actually just type the CIA archives and go back, and or just type American secret plan to hijack Pakistani nukes. You'll see it. It's an older version that has come out, older news that has come out. I'm sure Americans are pretty cool in all this stuff. They keep their, they'll keep their stuff updated, and so you'll find there is a plan. And understand one thing: Pakistanis will, the day Pakistan loses its nuclear weapons or has the smallest possible incident with their nuclear weapons, that's the end of Pakistan. So till the time the Pakistani army is alive and breathing, let me assure you, they're going to keep their nuclear weapons better than they keep their whats. So let's be assured of that. Wonderful, awesome analysis. First time I listened to full list of Pakistani blunders. There are so many more. I can't cover them in an hour's episode. So I tried my best putting a little different spin onto this entire game. Post 1971, Pakistan was successful in Kashmiri Hindu genocide in the 90s, Khalistan movement in Punjab, 90s Khalistan again, rise in, on the rise in Punjab again. Let me tell you one thing, and let me break something for you, and I'll give you a teaser for the Khalistani movement. You know, Khalistani movement is not for Punjab and not for the Sikhs. Let me tell you this: Khalistani movement was designed. It was not to kind of separate Punjab. They don't care about that entire thing. What they want is to cut off Punjab so that India's access towards Kashmir gets removed. Everything is Kashmir. Okay, so the Sikhs who are standing and doing Khalistan today, they need to understand they are useful idiots, nothing else. Uh, Brother, I'm gonna do a Jai Bharat, Jai Punjab, Sab. I'm gonna do. मैं करना full episode करांगा मैं पंजाबी ते full मैं cover करांगा खालिस्तान इशू किवें launch किया गया किवें की किया गया. I will completely do it and I will tell you the entire history as to who is behind this entire game. We'll always think it's Pakistan, but the story goes a little further back than that. Let me come back to you in the next couple of days and I'll do a show about it. Adi, along the same lines, when you look at their generals, our generals look class apart. There's no intellect or clarity, vision or thinking. Sahib, please understand our generals right. And you look at our generals, they live normal lives. They don't have mahals and stuff like that. Some people are there who are rich and they've got their family wealth and this and that. That's fine. But generally speaking, most of the officers from the armed forces, I'm a son of a armed forces officer. We don't have the kind of money that the Pakistani Colonel Saabs and Brigadier Saabs and Air Air Vice Marshal Saabs children have. It's not, no. I mean, it's just not there, right? What's your comment on misrepresentation of Indian map in some Western media channels? Is government of India aware of this problem? Sir, Mr. Jaishankar said it out, called it out right in the open for the G20, right? So I think the government of India is very well aware of it, and a lot much has been done rather than just accepting it. So yeah, I'm going to guys rush through the rest of the some comments so that we've crossed about an hour. 84 billion explains why Pakistan's narrative war is way ahead. Well, Pakistan's narrative war is way ahead because we as fools have believed everything that has come out of their mouth. Let me put that very clearly. They can keep telling you stuff. It is on us to believe it. Today we refuse to believe that, so it doesn't work. Previously, we used to believe that 90% of our population used to believe whatever was put out on our television. What was that dialogue? Newspaper mein padha ya TV mein dekha? The reasons, thank you so much for that. My channels and so many other channels are doing what they're doing today is because people have lost trust on what is coming in the media. Because at the end of it, over here, you find a certain amount of structure, and you know that if there is something coming out of this particular channel's game, this is the amount, this is the percentage of stuff that will be absolutely bang on accurate. I try and be 99.99%. I may be making mistakes somewhere or the other, but minor mistakes. Whatever I'm telling you, you can go back, research it. If I'm wrong, let me know. That's the problem in our country. We've been believing every damn thing that was told to us. And plus, we never wanted to read. We never wanted to find out what our history was. We never wanted to do this and that and the other. I personally have this opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong. The whole renaissance of our mind started somewhere around 2010. That's when India started asking questions, saying, what the hell? And that's when I think things started changing. So we're just going through that process about 10, 12, 13 years. Give it time. We'll be fine. I'm quite positive. India has a lot to offer. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get in touch with him, Vijay Saab. Let's see if I'm able to. Western platforms is exploited by Pakistan and China. What is that government of India needs to take measures to control this disinformation narratives, kind of disinformation getting Indians prone to attacks. Uh, you know, disinformation, there's a big thing about disinformation is that it is disinformation. Um, a narrative has to have a certain amount of fact for it to be kind of sold for a long time. If it is devoid of fact, it doesn't last. Right? The Chinese, if you remember, in after Galwan came and said, "Oh, we did this, we did that, we did this, we did that." A lot of us Indians, we said, "Yaar, सही तो नहीं बोल रहे. We got that thought. Let's accept it. We got that thought because that's what propaganda does to you. But then sense prevailed and we said no. We know what these guys are talking about. We know what our army has done, and we trust and believe our army. Information and disinformation and countering that disinformation can only be done to a certain extent by the government authorities. The rest of it needs to be done by Kiran, you, and me. We are responsible for what we think. We are responsible for putting the right kind of stuff on our WhatsApps, on our Telegram channels, on our Twitter pages, on our Facebook pages, on our Instagram pages, and wherever else that you guys post. So, it's something that we need to understand. Akash, what are the repercussions if we attack POK? Akash, you ask very big questions. Yeah, let me, tell you that. And I've done 3, 4 videos about it. Repercussions are military. See, taking POK is not a military thing. It's always touted to be a military thing. We need to understand it's not always a military thing. There are other ways of doing stuff, but we need to also understand, is it really required for us? Check out my video with General Shankar, another video that I've done solo where you will be able to get some insights. I love your Punjabi. Thank you, Sab. Khalistan Conspiracy book by GBS Sindhu. I've read that and I'm in the process of reading 2 other books right now. And that's why I'm saying there's a lot of research happening. I've got the current game going. I want to go back to the misfire of history that has been done with us. So that's, something that I want to talk about. How about the distorted map by Taliban of India? Does it cautions us to deal with Afghanistan? What do you expect from Taliban, sir? I don't expect anything else. So that's fine. Let them be. Remember one thing, all these costs cannot be public, but there has to be costs. That's all I would say for that. Right. I think Colonel Hani Bakshi from TSD. Yes, I mean I would like to have him someday, probably. But for that, guys, you need to spread the message so that I reach 10,000 followers as fast as possible, and I'm able to actually, grow this channel and put the right narrative out into the public domain. Vijay, you're asking what are the 2 other books? One is a book written by Harjot Singh's Oberoi. Harjot Oberoi. It is about the history of Sikhs, and the other is about the misfire, the overcorrection of history by the British. And I can, if you correct me with me on email, I'll send you the author's name. I'm just slipping my mind. Uh, it's a combination of authors actually, but these 2 books are fantastic. Try Colonel Ajay Singh as well. Well, Colonel Ajay Singh, I have done 3, 4 videos with him. Please do check it out in the playlist of India's war history. Guys, thank you so much. 1 minute and 7 seconds. Thank you all for joining me. It's nice to have all of you guys here. I know there are loads of things that are being done about Pakistan. It's so nice to have you guys on my show. Tells me that there is you guys actually appreciate what I'm doing. So that's very, very nice. Uh, excellent session. Replace prime time. I hope so, sir. At someday, And guys, always remember, I'm a single person doing this entire thing. Rajiv Kapoor's book on Khalistan, I find a little biased, but yeah, I've kind of brushed through it. So that's fine. Anyways, so please, before I sign off, like this video. Please like this video. Those of you who are watching right now, and those of you who are going to watch in the future, please hit the like button so that I reach a larger audience. We grow faster as a community, and we're able to kind of do what we need to do for our country. If you can, please do support me and help out the Dev Talks efforts. Thank you so much, Mr. Naveen, for making all the memberships and all the contribution that you've done to Dev Talks. Thank you all for watching. Please spread the message of Dev Talks. Visit my websites, thedevtalks.com. And yes, I will see you tomorrow night with an interesting episode of globalism. And that's something I'm going to talk about with Lieutenant General Kamath. It's a recorded episode. I will put it out probably in the evening, and let me see if I have a live show planned for you in the night. Till then, keep us track of the little shorts that I keep putting out, little funny shorts, and I will see you tomorrow. Jai Hind.